So we're in Pirkei, Mishnah Hey. This is an interesting one that on face value, the question is what can we learn from it? So let's read it with the Yona and see if we can figure out what the Mishnah is trying to teach us. And then maybe we'll bring it up Chaim Volozhiner and his Pirush on Pirkei Avos to flesh it out. So says the Mishnah, Asar Nisim Nasu L'Avoseinu B'Beis HaMikdash. There are 10 miracles that happened L'Avoseinu, our forefathers in the Beis HaMikdash. Number 1, Lahipila Isha Mireach B'Sar HaKodesh. A woman did not miscarry from the smell of the B'Sar HaKodesh, of the Korbanos. So we'll change from our norm. Here we'll do the Rabbeinu on each one, because it's a whole long list of 10. Al-Mizbeach HaChitzon, the Rabbeinu says, on the outer altar, V'noisin Reach Ein Kol Tzli. It gives off the smell of like roasted meat. B'Sar HaKodesh Asa B'Hana, and one cannot derive benefit. The meat that's on the Mizbeach from the Korban Oila is Asa Midaraisa for anyone to eat, even for a Kohen. V'Hakadosh Baruch Hu Kol Oisin HaYamim Shamar Es HaNoshim Shlehipilu Me'oisa Reach. And Hashem saved the women from not miscarrying from that smell. Now, why would a woman miscarry from that smell? He doesn't explain, but based on the Gemara. The Gemara say, the Gemara in Yoma, I think, that if a woman smells something, and the truth is that this is even by men and by women who are not expecting, if you smelled something and you desired it, so it would be dangerous not to taste from it. To the point that the Gemara is matir a person eating from it. If he gets, falls into like a trance, he gets into like a stupor where he's like salivating and he's like, he's not fully there. So then it's kanas nefashos back then. On this, we'd probably say nishtanu hativim. But back then it was the Metzias has changed today. Back then it was sakanas nefashos. So the Gemara says by Elisha ben Avuya, if I'm not mistaken, that his mother on Yom Kippur, this is brought down in Shulchan Aruch in Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, if a woman who's expecting smells this, it's a danger to herself and to the fetus. She smells food, and she gets into this trance, she has to have it. So we whisper into her ear, it's Yom Kippur. And the fetus is supposed to hear that on some level, and then calm him or herself down. With Elisha ben Avuya, it didn't work. She heard it, she desired this food, they whispered into her ear, she still desired it, so they gave it to her. That's the halacha, it's the kanas nefashos. So the miracle, coming back to our Mishnah, as the miracle in the Beis HaMikdash was that never happened to a woman there. There, the woman never smelled the kachin and then desired that she'd have to eat from it, which would be an isdaraisa of being nana from basa kachin. That was considered a miracle. That never happened. The second nace in the Beis HaMikdash was that the B'Sar HaKodesh, the meat, never spoiled. So says the Rabbeinu, kachim kalim shenachal l'shnei yom v'layla echad. Kachim kalim, the shlamim, certain korbanos that are eaten 2 days and a night. So for example, if you shech the shlamim today, Sunday morning, so you can eat the meat the entire day today, the entire night, Sunday night, and the entire Monday until Shkia. You have shnei yom v'layla echad. So you have 2 days and 1 night. Now imagine Yerushalayim in July, you're leaving that meat out. There's no refrigeration. Leaving it out, and there was no roof in the Azar. It was open to the Shemayim. So it's going to rot. It's going to spoil. It never happened. They left their meat in the Azara. Maybe they only got to it 36 hours later. Kachim kalim, and it never spoiled. The Kohen Gadol, the first Mishnah Yoma says that they would be mafreshim 7 days before Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, they would feed him all these certain things. If he saw carry, if he had an emission at night, that would invalidate him from doing the avodah on Yom Kippur. That never happened. The Kohen Gadol never saw carry on Leil Yom Kippur, on Yom Kippur. They should start with sgan. So you shouldn't need to bring in the second in command to be Mamal Malcolm to take over for the Kohen Gadol. So even though I guess he's interesting, he says the Rabbeinu says that they knew this nace would happen. They knew, right? But they still set aside this gun. They still had this second in command ready to go. We don't rely on a miracle, and therefore they would also make this gun ready. Which is interesting stuff, because on any particular year, it's not a nace that you didn't see carry. Right? It's not a nace that every night a person doesn't see carry. But over the course of the 420 years, it's taka chiddush. right? So you could have argued, is that called Ein Simcha al Nes? Every specific year, it's not a Nes. If you look at the entire centuries of the Beis HaMikdash, that's Taka Nes. So, for example, the halacha, right? To run across a field of grass on Shabbos, is that a psik that you're going to uproot grass? Every blade that your foot touches is not a psik, but of course the entire yard is a psik. The Rivash, one of the Rishonim does don that as a psik. Look at the entire thing. Same concept here. Since the entire 420 years, that's a nes. So therefore, ain't something on a nes. We can't rely on a miracle. And they appointed the sgan every year to get him ready, even though it never happened. That's the third miracle in the Beis HaMikdash. Number 4, again, it was the Beis HaMikdash was like a slaughterhouse. It was like a butcher, right? They were preparing all the meat and they're salting if they're going to cook it. So again, it's in Eretz Yisrael in the summer, no refrigeration, all the meat's lying around there. There was never one fly in the place where they prepared the meat to be eaten in the Beis HaMikdash. Yishum Kedusha, says the Rabbeinu Yona, because of the Kedusha in the Azar, in the Beis HaMikdash, there was never any flies. That was the 4th nes. Number 5. So here's in a different order. The order we have in the Mishnah here is she never miscarried, the meat never went off, never saw a fly in the Beis HaMikdash. The Rabbeinu has this inverted. La'ira carried the Kohen Gadol Kippurim. Number 5, La'kibuk sham eishel atzei marach. So you had a number of marachas, a number of fires in the Mizbeach, and it could rain, it could even snow in Yerushalayim. And the rain or the snow never put out the fire that was on the Mizbeach, which Al Pi Derech HaTeva should have gone out, sometimes at least. That was the miracle number 5. See, because the Rabbeinu Yona has it in a different order. He says over there, I'm just skipping around in the Rabbeinu Yona, never went out. Okay, it just describes it. The smoke from the Mizbeach would go up straight in one, straight cloud, we call it, one like cylinder, and the wind never blew that off. It always stayed straight. We never found the psul in the Minchas HaOmer. The Minchas HaOmer is the korban that we bring second day Pesach. Second day Pesach in the Minchas HaOmer, and that's Matir Chadash in Eretz Yisrael, in the world. The Machlokes, where it applies, the Tikkun applies in Eretz Yisrael. So in Eretz Yisrael, Chadash becomes mutter. Anything that's planted, anything that takes root, the new crop that takes root by the second day Pesach becomes mutter by the Minchas HaOmer. And that happened on the second day Pesach. So there was never a psul. If there was a psul in Minchas HaOmer, you missed it, you can be in trouble because there's no heter for Chadash then. The Shtei Alechem was the mincha that was brought on Shavuos. That was Matir Chadash in the Beis HaMikdash. So if they would mess that one up, if there was a psul in that, so then they'd be in trouble. They couldn't bring Chadash for a very long time in the Beis HaMikdash. Lechem Apanim as well. That's the lechem they put on the Mizbeach, actually matzah, they put on the Mizbeach, on the Shulchan in the Heichel. And it also never had a psul. There's never a psul in the Lechem Apanim. That's all considered one. Okay, fine. Another miracle in the Beis HaMikdash was they would stand in the Azar tzfufim. They were all crowded together. When they had to bow down, they had to prostrate themselves, they were told there's enough room. Like, so the Rabbeinu brings the famous Gemara that it's the Eretz HaTzvi, that it doesn't seem to fit anyone. Api Cheshbin, mathematically, there's not enough room for everyone. But Kadosh Baruch Hu made it, there's plenty of room. V'hizik nachash v'akrav b'Yerushalayim ne'olim. And a nachash and an akrav, a snake and a scorpion, never hurt and never bit, never stung anyone ever. And a person never said, in an oil and regular, they never said, there's no room here, let me go back. They never got to the hotel and it was fully booked and there was no room. They always had enough room, like David Melech says in Tehillim, Yerushalayim habnuya ki ir shechubu lo yachtav. What's loymar? Shabanu oisa shi'aru shekol yisrael yachilu ba. When they built Yerushalayim, they cheshbin be enough room for everyone to come. for Knesset Yisrael to come together in Yerushalayim. Okay, so what's the limit of this Mishnah? What's it coming to teach us? I guess the Yimakir, the Chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the Beis HaMikdash, everything was the Ma'al Min HaTeva, and when we had that Shechina, when we had the Gilui Shechina, so we saw the Ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for Klal Yisrael, and that he made the Beis HaMikdash function in this way, the Ma'al Min HaTeva. We saw that Ava, and today we don't have that. Those are the Pashup Shat. So the Reb Chaim Volozhin in Ruach Chaim, in his Pirush on Pirkei Avos, so he says, is a shtickle of dumb. We'll go through each miracle and how he explains it. So Hisriach B'sar Kachim. So the meat, the Kachim Kalim, never rotted. Teaching us even today that if a person acts with Kedusha, right, if he doesn't look at what he's not supposed to look at, he doesn't involve himself in things he shouldn't be involved in, the koyach de misa'ava bedila mimenu. So the koyach of tumah, the impure spirit, that when a person does averis goes on him, that goes away from him. So a person finds himself, he's challenged in certain areas, he feels himself, he's in the schmutz, he's in the dirt. So the Mishnah is telling us, according to Chaim Volozhiner, that if a person's misnaig b'kedusha, if he acts with kedusha like in the Beis HaMikdash, then in a sense, it could be even saying that's not so much a miracle. I mean, it's an ace that HaKadosh Baruch Hu set it up. But it also will work for us today that if we act with Kedusha, so then the Ruach HaTumah will go away from us. Interesting. He says that the fact that our meat, you can argue that's what it means to say, in our houses spoils, that's because of Chet and Avon. Where there's no Chet and no Avon, there's no Sirchan, there's no spoilage. Who has Sirchan should be Gehenna. So the truth is, a person that does Averas, he becomes putrid. There's a sirchon, but our gashmiistic senses can't sense that. When a person gets to Shemayim, he'll be able to sense that. So that's the limit of Lo Yisriach B'sar Kachim, is where there's Kedusha, there's no sirchon. So the next miracle, L'nir Zvov B'beis HaMit B'chayim, there was never a fly where they processed the meat in the Azara. So Zavta the Chaim Volozhiner, Al Derech Rem is Kivnu L'maymer Chazal Gmar Brachas, Yetzirah Doimel Zvov. The Yetzirah is like a fly, and the Yachal is carved the Kedusha. Meshkasa Be'elisha, Ish Kadosh, Shtarosa Zvov over Al Shulchan. And again, weiter, Zvov, a fly can't come towards Kedusha. It's the same idea of the B'sar Kachim that didn't rot. Okay, so here's the ganze Riches on that. Ira Kerry, the Kohen Gadol never saw Kerry. Yaduaki Kerry ain't a chet rak einish al hirur. Kerry, interesting, because Kerry is not itself a chet in Aveira. It's the einish for the hirur. Kerry comes when a person thinks what he shouldn't be thinking about, and the einish, the punishment for that is the Kerry. The Kohen Gadol, how you write Kerry, how you my face shehir her. The Kohen Gadol saw Kerry, that's a raya that he had hirur. How you love is the ain kol, and then it'd be an embarrassment for him. Everyone would know this. He'd be embarrassed. With the God's clients who would come and see the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. So that would be an embarrassment to him. Even Zichron Bai Sheni was like that. Even in Bai Rishon, sometimes the Kohen Gadol was on a level where really he should have seen Kerry. Kodesh Baruch had Rahmanis on his cover, and he didn't see Kerry. The rain did not put out the fire of the Maracha. He says, it's not the biggest miracle that it doesn't rain over there. Hashem could have it raining in Yerushalayim, but still not such a stark rain in the Azara for it to put out the fire. That's not like the biggest miracle that it never was no torrential downpour over the Azara. It's showing us a person who's kavua, he's set, he's regimented in his avodah. Nothing is going to move him off the path. If he's kavua in his avodah, he's not arai. The person comes in here and there, so then the wind can blow him off and the rain can put him out. But a person who's kavua, he's set in his avodah, he has a sidar that he never misses. With all the different things that are mafriya him from his avodah, that bother him, trying to pull him away from his avodah, he'll be able to stand. So to the Eish Mizbech is Maramis to the Yid, and there's a Vodas in Limud HaTorah, and there's a Vodas HaKodesh, even in Chesed and Mitzvahs. If he is Kavua, I think it's very appropriate for this audience. A person is Kavua, so then nothing can move him out of the way. So you'll see, in Yeshiva, I remember seeing people, they always had things to do. Always had to go to the bank, and to go to the post office. For some reason, they were busy with things. And it could be based on this. It could be that if a person is kavua, he's able to learn and take care of the bank and the post office, or whatever. He doesn't have to mavatal his siddara. But a person who's not kavua, so the rain and the wind can push him from side to side. That's a limud for all of us, even today. So Rabbi Chaim Volozh's mahalach in this mission is to take it from back then and apply it for us today.
It's interesting because rain is looked upon as Torah and Shefer Bracha, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's interesting how he says an avoda, someone who's kaveya is avoda, which is a one-to-one connection to Hashem, requesting and connecting to Him. It seems as though if you want to take this mahalach, it seems would supersede, any kind of torrential or negative downflowing of bracha, if there is such a thing. In other words, we daven for a proper rain, the rain in its right season. It's in the Shema. We go through that whole process of we want the bracha to come in the proper manner.
Right.
So this is showing that there is bracha in the proper manner if your avoda is stark. If it's not, then you could have a downpour, which could really put out the flame of avoda.
Right. Thinking it's a very good point. It could also be maybe that sometimes there's the Yetzer Hara of mitzvahs too. You say the rain is nimshul for Torah, in line with the Torah. So sometimes the Yetzer Hara tells you to stay in the base meadows till 1 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes the Yetzer Hara tells you sometimes that when you still have lamb and giant, when your voice is not back yet, give the shiur. That could be Yetzer Hara, right? So it could be that's what the Mishnah is telling us also, that even one has to recognize that sometimes a mitzvah could be a Yetzer Hara.
That particular mitzvah, the laryngitis, remember, the entire olam depends on the voice of the Rav to give us Torah. So that's why it's not a Yetzer Hara. It's a real Yishmaka mitzvah. We're still recording, so we can disconnect when we go into the next section. All right, I'm going to go get my Gemara.
Sure.